And a good Thursday night, everyone. Thanks for joining for this Tropics After Dark. This one, we introduce a new partner to the page. As always, we appreciate our sponsors and our partners. Paul Davis, Restoration of Baton Rouge, has joined up with us, one of our newest partners. So we definitely welcome them. Visit their Facebook page and give them a like, and visit their website as well. And also, there's a phone number there in case you do need, some restoration, any kind of storm damage repairs. Think of them, and you can use that promo code Gulf Coast Updates when you talk to them, and they'll bump you up to first in line. So pretty cool to have them on board. We appreciate Paul Davis Restoration. All right, so we are talking about Tropical Storm Ida still out there in the Caribbean, and Ida's behaving right now. Still, we were on earlier this evening talking about as it became a tropical storm. It had 40-mile-per-hour winds, and currently it still is hanging at 40 miles per hour. Does that mean much in the long term? Well, maybe not, but at least it's not rapidly intensifying right now. That doesn't mean anything once it gets to the Gulf. We'll have to keep an eye on that. But for now, here are the current stats for Ida. Let me give it to you in case you are tracking. Some of the coordinates are whatever, 18.6 north, 80.5 west. It is moving northwest at, really the more precise thing to consider is 320 degrees. I always showed this last year to kind of understand that. The National Hurricane Center is putting it right there. Well, tried to. Anyway. Right there, 320 degrees. That's the motion that the National Hurricane Center has it moving at northwest in that direction. So that's where it's moving right now. It's still sticking at 40 miles per hour currently as far as the, wind speeds currently. So again, it's just still hanging in tropical storm range, and probably expecting that to actually stay a tropical storm for the next several hours. I don't anticipate this thing really bubbling into something really huge until it gets across Cuba and back to the Gulf of Mexico. It could still gain a little bit of strength. Right now, it's at awesome, Mary. I'm glad to hear that about Paul Davis. That's great to hear. So, I don't expect this thing to really explode before Cuba. It's 40 miles per hour right now. Could it get up to 50, 60? Maybe before it gets to Cuba. I know Carmen from the Cayman Islands. I'm glad things are going well for you there right now, Carmen. Watching from Cayman Islands, always good to have you on here. Right now, I'm sure you are experiencing, not beautiful weather, obviously, but hopefully not too bad in that area. I messaged you the other night telling you to probably expect tropical storm conditions, and hopefully that's all you're going to get as this thing moves off to the northwest. So good to have you on here. So a few changes tonight, on the, on the cone, and, some different things to talk about. Let me first and foremost pull up the forecast cone. There it is. And again, we haven't had much of a shift from earlier tonight. Like I was telling you earlier, we'll have slight shifts back and forth. If you were looking at the models that I had posted to the page, we had a slight shift to the, to the west on that model run. The National Hurricane Center, they may have nudged it a little bit, but really not too much. But what you're seeing on here are some of these, nice colors on this map now. And what do these mean? Well, these pink colors here along the coast. These are all hurricane watches. You may have gotten notifications to your phone. I'm not sure. I don't think I did. But anyway, those are hurricane watches that have been posted. And this yellow area around Mobile, those are tropical storm watches as well. Those will likely become warnings maybe. Yeah, going into tomorrow night, those will likely, turn into warnings tomorrow. So Hurricane Watch is up tonight from as I noticed the pink color, that's where from Cameron, Louisiana, eastward to the Mississippi-Alabama border. That includes Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and the metropolitan New Orleans area, all under Hurricane Watch. The Tropical Storm Watch is issued from Mississippi-Alabama border to the Alabama-Florida border. That's what the National Hurricane says tonight. In addition, we do have a storm surge watch that has been issued, and that's going from let me show you here what we got. This is better to just kind of show you this, honestly. There's a storm surge watch, right? And this is just areas that could see storm surge. It's not much more that I can say here. Elevated water along the coast that that could be coming in. This is just a watch right now. As we fine tune the details, we have the track a little bit more known. Then these will be turned into warnings. Obviously, if you're on the eastern side of where the center comes in, that's where the warnings will be. This is new from the National Hurricane Center tonight. I told y'all they'll be issuing this once we got a little bit closer. Obviously, right now, these numbers, again, may need to be fine-tuned depending on where the center comes in. But right now, we look at the center coming in somewhere, like that maybe. I don't know if it's exact, but that's close enough. The point is, look at the number difference on the western side versus the number difference on the eastern side. Hey, what's up, Trey? Good to see you on here, bud. 4 to 7 feet on the west is, you can still have water rise, by the way, even on the western side. It's not going to be as drastic as the eastern side, but as that storm's coming in, remember, especially when it's a little bit lower, like down here, you'll have water that's coming in around the counterclockwise, pushing water in that direction. That's probably where those numbers would be highest. But as the center is actually coming in, and I'm having a little bit of skipping problems there. There it is. So the center is there. Remember, at this point, you have offshore flow. So I would think the water probably wouldn't be as high at that point on the western side. However, on the eastern side, we have 7 to 11 feet possible down here close to the coast. And notice even on this side, right? Remember, when the storm's coming up like this, as it's down here kind of, you're going to have that flow counterclockwise, and at that point is probably where you're going to have the water push on this side, and that's the potential for that 7 to 11 feet of water rise on that side as well. So remember, this is one of the, obviously we can't really complain about this, it's just how the geography is, but this is that dreaded right, that dreaded right angle that we have here in the Mississippi-Louisiana coastline. And that piles water in, right, and doesn't have anywhere to escape. The only place it can go is in, and that was why the Katrina storm totals were record breaking. And it's the way the geography is, in that area. And of course, Katrina was a different beast, where you just had a pile of water come into the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Mississippi Gulf Coast bared the true brunt of that storm. Shouldn't be the case with this one, but with that said, we do see that still, what I was mentioning earlier is no matter where the center comes in, you're going to have impacts that are stretching well beyond just where the center is, okay? So keep that in mind. And even going toward the Alabama, Florida coast, you got 3 to 5 feet of water rise even around Mobile Bay, and you can't see it on here because, stretching over there toward Florida, I'm sure 2 to 4 feet as you go toward the Florida Panhandle as well. So, what we have right now are obviously concerning numbers. I don't know if these are, and look at Lake Pontchartrain, by the way, 3 to 5 feet, 2 to 4 feet, Lake Maurepas. I don't know if these are conservative numbers. I'm not sure if these are, could go up. Obviously, if the storm is a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than anticipated, these numbers could increase. But we'll just have to keep an eye on it and see how this evolves over time. But we knew these numbers were going to come at some point, and the concerning numbers obviously are these 7 to 11 feet water rise in those areas. So something we'll just have to keep an eye on there moving forward. Now, something else to keep an eye on is, and I'm kind of just noticing this, the stuff comes in at 10 o'clock, y'all. I read over it a little bit, and Kimberly, WWL TV said they backed off Cat 2 and said they don't think it'll be that strong. I don't know what WWL TV is talking about, honestly, because the National Hurricane Center still has Category 2, 110 miles per hour at landfall right now. Now I can show you this if you don't want to believe me. There it is, 110 miles per hour. Now, the thing that has kind of shifted or changed since earlier, and again, this will happen, the timing now of this point is 7 p.m. on Sunday. Earlier, I believe we were talking, it was 1 p.m. on Sunday, right? So remember, give or take a few hours, right? That happens. Timing shifts, track shifts. It's not perfect, but you get an idea. It's looking like Sunday. It's looking like the Louisiana coast. Timing will be fine-tuned as we go in, and stuff changes in the last few hours too, okay? It's never a perfect thing with this, so just keep that in mind. So They have not backed off of intensity, so let me just debunk that right now. I don't know what WWLT's talking about. I honestly don't watch local news anymore, really. Uh, just look at the National Hurricane Center and look at stuff myself and tell you what I see. So I don't know if they said that and why they're saying that, but anyway, they did not back off. It's still Category 2 as predicted by the National Hurricane Center. It stayed the same. 110 miles per hour, gust up to 130. North-northwest movement at 10 is what they're predicting. I don't know if you can see that. That's what it says. So earlier we had a north-northwest or northwest movement at landfall of like 14. So they're slowing it down a little bit on approach there. So keep that in mind. And this is what I was talking about earlier, the potential to see rainfall amounts piling up. And the slower it goes, that becomes more concerning. So what has changed tonight? Well, from 4 o'clock, not too much, but we do have an idea now of the storm surge amounts, and I want to show you some rainfall that I was talking about earlier, and why that's so concerning to me as maybe a secondary, always that kind of a third threat, but always could be considered one of the primary threats with this is that rainfall potential, and I'll show you something, in just a little while. So again, that's the latest cone from the National Hurricane Center. Let me zoom in here. I like to use this cone because, you can look at this, but it's like, where is my house? I can't really tell. So this one, I just like to zoom in a little bit. You can really tell where they have the center line. Now, here's something to watch. And again, this is what I always like to tell you all. I like to watch for trends. I don't really focus too much on the exact landing of the center point, but what I like to focus on is, did the center point shift left or right? And earlier, I believe at 4 o'clock when I was on, the center line was very close to Grand Isle. It shifted now a little bit here to the west. We're not talking huge amounts here. I don't know. Is that maybe 20 miles? I don't even know. But it did shift west from earlier. It's not a huge shift, but it did shift a little bit to the west there. Does that do anything in terms of impacts? I mean, it remains to be seen. That does still keep the metropolitan New Orleans area on the eastern side. So remember, you have a storm coming in like this, a center somewhere maybe around here that puts all this area on that nasty side of the storm. And also keep in mind, this is probably not going to be a storm when it gets to the Gulf. I'm sure we're going to see that classic buzzsaw look form, with that, and we're not going to just have stuff on the east, right, like we see with these weaker storms. This will probably be well formed, a donut around the eye, and we'll have stuff on the western side as well. So although it's going to be better to be on the western side, you're still going to have impacts on the western side. So if this track holds, big if, by the way, because I've seen plot twists in the tropics, and we're still at the point that we can see some plot twists with this, right? We can still see some shifts. As long as the cone is this wide, we have to kind of, I don't want to say plan for it, but know that is a possibility. But as I always say, for now, let's take a look at if this current track holds. This would take the center down here, south of Dulac, through Houma. And then as it goes up here to the north, you're close to Baton Rouge, right? On the western side, you're going to get that strong north wind and some impacts there in the Baton Rouge area. And this thing goes straight north. So I'm telling you, in this whole quadrant right here, as this moves north, we're talking widespread power outages, right? Because if this is close to a Cat 3, I'm still thinking they have this at 110, which is 1 mile per hour less than a 3. I don't know, something about the National Hurricane Center. They don't like to forecast Cat 3s a lot of times this early, but this could absolutely get to a Category 3, okay? So if there's a Cat 3 on the coast and this moves to the north, it's not going to weaken as quickly as, we'd hope it would. There'll probably be hurricane conditions moving north here. And so I'm thinking we're going to have some power outages not only on the coast, but as this thing moves inland there. So that whole area circled, there is a pretty decent likelihood that we'll see some pretty significant power outages in this area, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, something else to keep in mind. This is the best estimate for the track. However, we have a margin for error both ways still, okay? So if you're over here, all right, Lake Charles area, Lafayette, Biloxi, Mobile. You're on the eastern side of this, all right? Nobody's out of this yet as far as potential impacts from the center, okay? So if you're over there in the western side of Louisiana, it's looking better for you guys over there at Beaumont, Texas, right? Houston, looking better for y'all. Lake Charles area, still looking good, but you're still technically, I think, right? Let me zoom in a little bit. I know it's close, but I think unless they're just out now, they're just in it. So Lake Charles, you're technically still in the cone barely. So is Lafayette, Jennings, all these areas, right? Acadiana. And then the eastern part of the cone over here goes all the way to just, yeah, Mobile, you're in it actually on the curve there. So you keep in mind, there's still some margin there in the end. Now, the most likely landfall right now still does look like southeast, south central, I don't know what you want to call it. Anyway, there, give or take a few miles. But there is some spread there, and I think a variable that we're gonna watch is what I told y'all yesterday. What I told y'all yesterday, to watch for is this time period. Remember now, this is going to be, so we did have a little shift in the models, and notice here as we look at how this storm's been kind of going, right? We had a northwest movement, and then it stopped for a little while. It kind of chilled out for a minute here and said, let me chart myself and where am I going? Went west, due west, right, for a little while, and then it said, all right, I'll go back to northwest. So wobbles back and forth. Early on here, we don't have a very well developed system at this point. It's still trying to get its act together. We have these wobbles that happen. That's a wobble. We go northwest, straight west, back northwest. Do we see another pause and break for it? Going into tonight, and then into tomorrow. Do we see a straight northwest movement, or do we get a little bit of this, and there's a point, and then do we get a little bit more of this, and then this? So my point is that the more it does this, and remember, this could also do a little bit of this, a little bit more north. So it's not a perfect science here. This is not just going to say, oh, I'm on a road right now, I'm just going to follow this center line. It's not how it works. We do have wobbles that happen, and each time one of these wobbles happen, it adjusts things. And so, yeah, don't say Cantori's name 3 times. He'll show up in your city. So every time we have a wobble, that shifts things. So by the way, just this straight west jog right there shifted things a little bit, at least in the near term. Because if you remember earlier, we were looking at this, the center line was actually like over here, a little bit more on the coast of Cuba. Now it's just right here on the very tip of it. May not be good as far as getting into the Gulf of Mexico, because the more that went over Cuba, maybe it would have disrupted it a little bit more. Now if it just kind of clips it and gets back into the Gulf right here, might have more of a chance to recover a little bit quicker. So I don't know, something to consider there. Anyway, here's your key times tomorrow. Going into tomorrow here, before this is 7 p.m. was 27th, that's tomorrow. And at that point, it's going to be approaching Cuba. The National Hurricane Center says it's going to be about 65 miles per hour, 75 miles per hour at that point, going into Cuba, right? And so that's tomorrow evening. Now, at this point tomorrow, watching Tropics After Dark, I hope y'all are ready. I hope y'all will watch tomorrow night. It'll probably be maybe actually exiting off of Cuba, getting back to the Gulf. This is 7 a.m. on Saturday. At that point, the National Hurricane Center has it as a hurricane at that point, right? It gets into the Gulf. It probably has some time to, needs to recover a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of time. It's obviously maybe get disrupted by this and then recovers a bit, right? It takes a few hours sometimes for that. I think that's going to be key in this eventual forecast, is what does Cuba do to it? And do we see any type of center relocation, right? Sometimes as these things come off of different land masses, you'll have a mess happen, and the center's like, oh geez, I'm all disrupted, and then maybe it reforms here, or maybe it reforms over here, or maybe it reforms over here. My point is that it causes some chaos sometimes, and that can shift things in the longer term. So we'll see what happens, right? I can almost guarantee you we're not going to see a straight run right here to this point after it gets off of Cuba. There's going to be something that happens around here, that that center is not going to stay on that line. So that's a variable, is kind of my point. We'll see how it does. We'll see what happens at that point. That, to me, is maybe one of the biggest variables that might shift things moving forward. We'll see what happens once we get past this point. And I think once we're in this range right here, this area, we're gonna know a lot more about this system once it recovers and once it gets itself going. I think we're gonna be pretty locked in on where this is going. Can you have 20 or 30 mile deviation at the end? Sure, you can, but I think Cuba is going to be an obstacle. After Cuba, it's a straight run up to the coast, all water to deal with at that point. So something else to look at here, we have 75 miles per hour here. We have 85 here, 100, and then 110. So steady strengthening up to the Gulf, up to the Gulf Coast once it's back into the water. The only thing I will say is that as this thing gets off of Cuba here, we have this loop current that we all know and no, not know and love. We all know and hate. It's going to be traveling probably right over that, right? So it's very warm and deep water at that point. And so that is where it's going to have the potential. I'm saying if we're going to see rapid intensification from this, it probably won't be tomorrow, but it'll more likely be on Saturday afternoon and early evening. If we see the rapid intensification happen, that is when it will happen, okay? And we've seen this several times in the past. Again, I don't say these things to scare. I don't say it to hype things up. I say it because realistically, I've seen it so many times happen where a Category 2 is forecast. I think Laura is the most recent example, right? Or maybe even one after that. I don't even remember, where Laura was not forecast to get up to where it was, getting up to, if I remember correctly. And it just hit a spot in the Gulf, and boom, every advisory, it was just, oh my Lord. And it's just every time it got 150, I think was landfall, or 155. I don't remember. That was not forecast. And what happens is it's hard to forecast that because you just don't know how these things are going to behave once they get in these perfect conditions. So something to watch for. That is certainly a potential that we could see rapid intensification that is not anticipated. It gets way stronger than anticipated. So right now they are saying 110. That puts it just under a Category 3. I mean, just under it, 1 mile per hour. Okay. So by the way, the gusts that they're anticipating to 130, that's Cat 4 gusts. So this can easily get to a Category 3. I'm not saying it's absolutely gonna, but I can tell you it's probably more likely to get to a Cat 3 than not. Now at that point, how much higher can it get? I don't know, but that loop current and those conditions that it's going to have make me a little bit nervous. So something to watch for as we go forward here. What's keeping it at bay currently right now is that upper low I kind of been talking about in the last day or so. You can kind of see some sort of spin right here. That's that upper low. And what it's doing is it's got a little bit of shear on this storm right now, right? You can tell Ida is trying to get going, right? It's close. It's dealing with some shear right now, but you can look at it and see that it's struggling a little bit, but it's not far off, right? It's not like those storms we saw in the past where you can't even tell where it's at. You can pick it out right now and say, yeah, there it is. So it's dealing with a little bit of moderate shear right now. It's going to keep it at bay, I think, for the next few hours, and maybe at least keep it at bay until it crosses Cuba. But that upper low is weakening, and it shouldn't have an impact on it, I don't think, once it gets into the Gulf. I mean, I hope it does. I hope this thing impacts it the entire time. But models indicate that once it crosses Cuba here and gets into this area right here is where that bathtub water is, and conditions are going to be pretty ripe for it to start really bubbling up once it gets, in that area. So this kind of, I have so many things open. I'm trying to find one image and I can't. So kind of showing you some different things here. This is Tropical Tidbits, by the way. Levi Cohen does a great job with this site. We appreciate him as well. So to give you an idea of what we're looking at, moving forward here, we have, this is where we're at right now, right? Big blob of moisture there south of Cuba. Continues to push forward, maybe intensifies a little bit before it actually gets to the Cuban coast and crosses Cuba. Now at this point, notice what happens right there, right? That's late tomorrow into Saturday, and disrupted a little bit. and then starts to get its act back together. Saturday morning, now it's free of Cuba. It only has water back in front of it. This is Saturday afternoon. I'm really thinking by Saturday at about noontime is when we're probably going to see something that we don't prefer to see in the Gulf, right? A very potent hurricane starting to kind of spread out a bit. And this would be like Saturday afternoon. The moist sound bit. I'm saying I do not have the moist sound bit open. I have so many things open. The moist sound bit was not one of them, so I apologize for that. I don't have that ready to roll, so my apologies. So this is Saturday afternoon, okay? So at that point, look, steady strengthening from Saturday afternoon. This is Saturday evening. And yeah, at that point, we're probably looking at Category 2, approaching Category 3 strength most likely, and at landfall, it moves in. That's a GFS. The GFS, by the way, is a little bit east of where the National Hurricane Center has it. So with that said, we do have so keep this in mind. So folks along the Mississippi Gulf Coast, Alabama, over toward the Florida Panhandle, this is not going to likely be your storm as far as center location goes, but I do want you to notice that the eastern side is always going to be the worst part of the storm. There's going to be a lot of mess stretching in that direction, so don't think that because you won't get the center, you are going to see impacts still from this. Water rise along the beach there, bands coming in that could have isolated tornadoes in them stretching far from the center. You get those tails that have those little, have those little tornadoes that spawn in. So there will be impacts on the eastern side. There will be impacts on the western side as well. But the nastiest weather is going to be right around the eastern side of that eye wall in this area right here, right along the eastern side. So, this is a little bit east, honestly, of where the center is, kind of depicted by the National Hurricane Center. But that is certainly a scenario where that's going to cause some pretty significant issues in some spots. Widespread power outages, high storm surge, plenty of rainfall, wind issues. I mean, there's going to be some issues with this if this is how it this is how it looks. Yeah, Michelle. Like I said, I know you're in Pensacola right now. I know Pensacola is not going to likely get to center, but there's still going to be impacts over there. Especially if it takes a more eastern track here. So something to keep in mind. And where is that image here? Let me see. Oh, there it is. All right. So anyway, after the storm surge, after the wind, after everything like that, the rainfall to me becomes a big issue because it's not. Let me drink some water. A lot of talking. All right. So anyway, you get the rain that comes in and probably causes some issues here. That red area is right now that is depicting 10 to 15 inches of rainfall. That orange area around it is 6 to 10 inches of rainfall. And then, yellow areas, that's still 4 to 6 inches of rain. And that's over there, right, toward Mobile and Pensacola. So 4 to 6 inches of rain, no, it's not that much, but still, there's some impacts that's going to stretch far from where the center comes in. The bullseye is actually the, you can see there, it's the red area. And that's a lot of southeast Louisiana, and that's a lot of rain that's going to be falling. So that becomes a concern. And I think even maybe in here, I don't know if I can see that correctly, but is that a little pink color right here? If that's pink, that's 15 to 20 inches of rainfall. I can't tell. It might be. I don't know why that would be there, but it might have been an accident by the National Hurricane Center, but that's very small. Unless my eyes are deceiving me, I think I see something pink right there, but maybe not. Anyway, a lot of rainfall coming with this storm as well. So that is not usually, it's like, oh, it's rain, but that's a lot. And what we get with these tropical systems is when it's coming up to the north, you get those bands that start moving in on the north side of the system, and then on the eastern side they just keep coming, and they're relentless. They don't stop until that thing is to the north, and even when it's to the north, you can get tails set up behind it and you can get more rainfall. So yeah, so that becomes a bit of an issue as well, the rainfall potential. Yeah. Again, look, y'all, I'm scared to look down at the chat because there's chat. So it's like, for some reason, Tropics After Dark seems to be a lot more of a different type of environment than the earlier tropical updates during the afternoon. I don't know what it is, but there's something about it. I will read it. but probably later. Well, I do want to answer questions toward the end, so I'm going to be going through them again. I just like to get through this and kind of show you all what's going on here. This, by the way, is another view, pretty much the same thing. That yellow there is 10, 15 inches of rain, and the oranges, I think that's basically the same image, just different colors as this one, so that doesn't really do anything. Let's see. So what else are we showing here? I have a bunch of stuff open. I don't even remember what I had open. This was the H Wharf, another view, and there it is, crossing Cuba, right? A little bit messed up after Cuba. And then once it gets back to the Gulf, you see it start expanding. By the time it gets close to the coast, it's a full-blown hurricane, very strong. And then this is west, by the way. The H Wharf has been consistently west of the other models. I'm not sure if that's going to verify, but it certainly could. And look how it comes in there. Yeah, so we're talking about a decent hurricane. And by the way, each one of these little skips that I do right there are 6 hours. So this is not like 12-hour increments. This is 6. So going into Sunday morning there, you're seeing some of those bands already moving into Southeast Louisiana. Now remember, this is 6 a.m., noon, 6 p.m., midnight, 6 a.m. So you see that's where that potential for the rainfall adds up, because it starts early, and this is not going to be a very fast moving system. Although it won't be stalling a la Harvey, it's not going to be zooming like Zeta. That's like a t-shirt. It's going to be going a little bit slower, and so that will obviously add up some of the rainfall totals. So that becomes a bit of a concern. So lots of different hazards to worry about tonight, and lots of different things to worry about with this system, and a lot of different things to watch for. One, I guess, good thing, I don't know if this is a good thing or not, because again, intensity models are kind of garbage, to be honest with you. So, but a lot of the clusters here clustered in to like Cat 2 and this higher Cat 1, with a couple of them coming up here to Cat 3. They backed off a little bit. I'm not really sure why, but I'm not really sure that this. I don't know. I don't want anybody to become complacent. I still think there's going to be a high. I still think this is going to get into the Cat 3 range at least. So I don't know if this means anything, honestly. Maybe this is just a wasted image. But anyway, the model's clustering around Cat 1, Cat 2 right now, with a couple of them getting into Cat 3, but yeah, take that with a grain of salt. These are the kind of ensemble members, by the way, just to kind of show you that, the high cluster right here, right, I guess, but there's still solutions that take it east and still some that take it to the west, but obviously these are kind of the more reliables, and those are kind of toward the center there. Now, even the reliables have a couple going, here to the east. Those would be considered outliers at this point, but the majority of them are kind of centering around here close to the coast. So yeah, that's sort of where I think the National Hurricane Center is actually maybe on the east. I think that you see that OFCI, this black one right here, that's where the National Hurricane Center's track is. So they're a little bit, keep that in mind now, y'all, because they're a little bit east of where these clusters of models are on this left side, okay? So we can still, like I said earlier, we can still have some tropical plot twists here. Remember what happened with Fred, and look, trust me, this is not what I'm saying is going to happen with the storm, but a lot of times in the early models, remember Fred was like closer to Panama City, and then all of a sudden it went all the way back toward like Mississippi, Alabama, and then it went back to where it was originally, back toward Panama City. These things sometimes divert back to where they were. So shifts to the west here, again, if you're in the western portion of the state here, maybe not the extreme western portion, but west of where the National Hurricane Center model cone is right now, you got to keep watching this, because these things can go back in that direction. I remember this happened. I keep talking about Gustav because it reminds me so much of Gustav's trajectory. And originally Gustav was supposed to be a Cat 4 coming into New Orleans. But it didn't. It went west. It didn't go too far west, but it was a Cat 2, I believe, but went west of New Orleans. So things shift. And Gustav's main problem was going over Cuba, and it never recovered. It went over Cuba, and it just was a mess after that a little bit. It was a nice, decent hurricane, but it wasn't as strong as what was originally predicted, and Cuba did a lot to it. So maybe Cuba can do a little bit to this one too. That's a hope, right? Some key points here. Obviously, these are important points. Tropical storm conditions in the Cayman Islands tonight. Point number one, increasing risk of life-threatening storm surge along the coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Keep that in mind, y'all, in Mississippi and Alabama, okay? You're not going to be maybe close to the center of circulation, but this is going to be a big circulation. You're not maybe close to the center. You're going to be close enough. There's still going to be some surge along the Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama coast, okay? Storm surge watch is in effect. And, of course, monitor things with your local officials. Increasing risk of dangerous hurricane force winds beginning Sunday along portions of the coast of Louisiana and Mississippi. Okay, so Mississippi, 2, you're still in this. All right, you're not going to just get out. You're still going to have impacts over there. Hurricane watch is in effect, and there's the rainfall threat, right? Rainfall along the central Gulf Coast and resulting in flash urban small stream river rain flooding. We got to watch the river levels. That's another thing we got to watch with this, right? That became a thing where everybody paid attention. You're right, Angel Gustav did do a lot of damage. That's true. It wasn't forecast. It wasn't as strong as it was forecast, but that thing did some damage. You were absolutely right about that. So certainly not saying that. I'm just saying that things change is kind of my point with that. The tracks can shift. We're going to have to watch the river levels as this comes in. We have the initial rainfall. It's going to be close to the coast. And I'll show you the surge in a second, Christy. We have the rainfall. It's going to be coming along the coast as this thing moves forward. But then remember, as it makes landfall, it moves to the north, and all the rain that falls to the north flows back down. So the river levels will have to be watched as well. So there's so many different elements with something like this that we have to keep an eye on. It's hard to even really put a number on the things that we have to watch with this. So lots going on, with this system. In case you joined late, I think somebody asking. There's a storm surge watch along the coast there. That's west, Texas, Louisiana border all the way through the Alabama, Florida border there, right? So there's a look at the storm surge watch, and the storm surge amounts, at least the predicted amounts right now, with a center maybe coming in something like that. I don't know where, somewhere around that area. Eastern portion of this are going to be the highest amounts, right? This is that problem area around Louisiana and Mississippi. That the way the geography is there is where you can pile up that water. So we're predicting 7 to 11 feet of water above ground there is where the water rise will be as it pushes in. That's east of the center. And then on the western side, not as high, but we're still talking 4 to 7 feet even west of the center of circulation. So big circulation. If this thing ends up stronger, we have more surge. Obviously, the surge numbers will be higher. So, keep that in mind as well. Right now, these are the best predictions for storm surge. We're talking about 7 to 11 feet east of where the center comes in. We're talking 3 to 5 feet even as far east as Mobile. So even there, we're going to be seeing some water rise 2 to 4 feet over there, way to the west, Texas, Louisiana border over there, close to Cameron, right? We have 2 to 4 feet that are going to be possible. So a lot of impacts stretching well away from where the center is. So there you go. That's the latest on Ida. Let me see this. Let me zoom into this, because this is I'll take this off. This is the latest cone and where the National Hurricane Center has Ida coming in as of the 10 p.m. update. What I like to do at this point is go back to the GFS model. And let's reload this, and we got the overnight model run. Here we go. This is again. I think we have 42 hours of this. We can at least get a little bit and see what's going on here. First time watching this with y'all. Here we go. So there it is. That's what we're looking at tonight, and it crosses over Cuba, and that's all we got. So that is really underwhelming, right? We got that into the Gulf, so we can't really go farther than that. 42 hours in, that's what we got right now, but it looks like the same story, right? Once it gets off of Cuba, it starts to intensify there. Just seeing difference. That was the 6 p.m. That's the overnight. A little more south in the overnight, maybe a little more west coming up here as it continues to load. We'll see. So I'll keep this up. That's the latest forecast coming. Now I'm going to brave into the comments here and see what's going on here and brace myself. Let's see what's going on. Hey, what's going on, Benjamin, Pensacola? Crystal, thanks for joining. Blake, good to see you on here. Kim, good evening to you as well. Cindy from Baton Rouge, thanks for watching. Erin says she got the Tropical Storm Watch on her phone. Let's see, evacuating dad. Not sure yet, Angel. Not sure about if I'm evacuating yet. I'm really not. Haven't made that decision just yet. I'm going to watch this tomorrow. Probably watch this early on Saturday as well, and see what's going on, and then make a decision there. Have not made that call yet. Good to see you on here, Darren from Niceville, Florida. Thank you for joining. Carmen, always good to see you on here. Mary as well. Let's see some questions here. Southeast Alabama, certainly going to get something out of it, right? Southeast Alabama, just showing some of the impacts we'll see there. Definitely some rainfall, maybe some tropical storm force gust, and some water rise there close to the coast as well. Good evening, Mark. Good to see you on here. Let's see. Cindy asks, even though it's on a northeast track, once it Ida crosses Cube, could they move over westward track? Yeah, it definitely could. Certainly could. I think what I was talking about a few minutes ago is that's one of the last variables here is what happens to the storm as it crosses Cuba, and do we see a center relocation maybe from that, and that can shift things a little bit. So certainly something that we could see moving forward, or some adjustments once it crosses Cuba and back to the Gulf. That's a variable that we need to watch for as that happens. Thank you, Tiffany. Appreciate that. 7 years been watching. Wow, that's crazy. You must have started right at the beginning of the page when I created the page. Created this in 2013, and if you've been watching for 7 years, that is certainly toward the beginning. Appreciate that, Tiffany. It could, Jessica. That's what I'm saying here. I mean, we could see shifts west, with this storm still. That's why I'm telling y'all to the west of where the center is right now. You got to keep an eye on this, because the trends I've been seeing today kind of stayed the same, but a few trends back west is what I've been kind of seeing a little bit. So that could very well go more to the west here before it's all said and done. So as long as you're in the cone, you have a chance to see the center of circulation. I think that's the most important thing to stress here. As long as you are in the cone, you have a chance to see that center. Equal chances on the left, the right, and the middle. That middle line is just the middle line. It's not the most likely spot. That's just the middle line of the cone. You have equal chances all in the cone there. Good evening, Karen from Slidell. Let's see. Tough to say, Heather, about Jackson, Mississippi. Once it makes landfall, if I can look here, maybe we can look at what the National Hurricane Center. Here we go. This is close enough, right? So they predict 50 miles per hour gusts to 65 close to Jackson there. So obviously it will, it'll weaken once it makes landfall. But still the potential to see some tropical storm force conditions up there in Jackson, and obviously some rainfall, and a lot of it as moving up in that direction. So keep that in mind. You could still see tropical storm force conditions even as far north as Jackson. Thank you, Randy. Good to see you on here, man. Yeah, that is David on here. Good to see you on here, David. I'm glad you are on here right now. And it's a good point, because I did want to read a couple of things from the discussion of the National Hurricane Center tonight. Again, they still have this thing getting up to 110, which would be just below Category 3. And again, I'm still thinking we're probably going to get up to a Category 3 at least with this. I hope I'm wrong, though. I really do. But yeah, they're saying, that the system is likely we're going to see a strong hurricane along the Louisiana coastline. Obviously, I mean that might be a Captain Obvious moment, but that's what National Hurricane Center was talking about as well. No, good to see you on here, Janice from New York. Thank you, Sally. Let's see. Here we go. Georgette says praying we stay on the good side of that. Yep, definitely. I wish no one had to get this storm, but at this point, it's really there's nowhere for it to go but toward the coast, right? It's not there's no escape routes anymore. So that's the unfortunate part of this, where when it's early on, you can have escape to the east and escape to the west, but right now it's going north, and once it turns in, there's nowhere it can really go. Let's. I think I answered that for you already for the coastal Mississippi. Okay. Let's see. Yeah, Kaylee, that next day of after the storm passes, when you go see some of the damage done, it's humbling to see sometimes with some of these bad storms. Um, yeah. So let's see. Let me see here. Let me go back to the GFS model and see if we can look at this. Yeah, a few more things on here. Yeah, we got enough. Now let's see what happens here. All right, so let's see. We were about right here last time, and yeah, I mean it's really not much change, right? Looking from the earlier run, that's still southeast Louisiana and the crosshairs there. So this is a look here at the IR. Yeah, really the same thing, right? We see a storm that builds, and then boom, and then intensifies all the way to landfall there, unfortunately. And that's what I don't like to see, because there's such a difference in as bad as Katrina was, it was actually weakening at landfall. It got up to 175, I think, in the Gulf, Katrina, and it was a ridiculous Cat 5, huge storm, and it actually started getting hit with some shear at the end of it that weakened it a bit to a Cat 3 at landfall. And as devastating as Katrina was, it was weakening at landfall, and it actually could have been a lot worse, which is scary to think about, right? Crazy to think about. But the difference between a storm, think Laura from last year, right? I know probably there's folks in here right now that can attest to this. Laura was strengthening all the way in. Charlie's another one that did that in Florida. Probably some folks in Florida that did that in 2004. Charlie strengthening all the way in. Laura strengthening all the way to landfall. There's a difference between a storm that's weakening versus coming in strengthening. There's an intensity about it that's so much worse. And this is what I don't like to see, is a storm there's, by the way, the water close to the coast, it's about 88 degrees. So there's none of those cooler shelf waters that a lot of the local Mets overblew last year. But when there's 88 degrees by the coast, that's just even more fuel to show that this thing will not weaken due to cooler temperatures close to the coast. Okay, so the water is really warm, really close to the coast. So something to keep in mind there, that is why we're seeing this intensification as it comes in. And that I don't like to see that, because, obviously we want to see this thing weaken, but I don't think that's going to be the case, unfortunately. All right, let's see. I'm going through questions. I see a lot of comments. I'm not really sure if I see the questions here. Zachary winds. I mean, there's potential to see some pretty strong winds up in Zachary as it moves its way north. I mean, it's a tropical storm at a minimum there. Maybe hurricane gusts. It's going to depend. I mean, look, Zachary's going to get a lot of wind, going to get a lot of rain from this. But you're inland enough where it should weaken a little bit, but trust me, you'll see some impacts and maybe even power outages in that area. That area I circled earlier is a very decent chance to see power outages in a pretty big margin for this. I know I'll show some power outage maps or predictions. Maybe tomorrow we'll have those. I didn't see any tonight, but kind of show what we're expecting as far as power outages moving forward with this. So there will be widespread outages, though, if this thing stays on this particular track. Thank you, Angie. Appreciate that. All right, let's see if I can get back down live here and see what we're talking about. A lot of comments tonight. I'm trying to keep up. Obviously, I can't answer every one of them. I'm trying to answer some here. At least he didn't refer to Mississippi as the landmass between Louisiana and Alabama, like the Weather Channel. I see that said a lot. did they really like? Is that just like a running joke for Mississippi, or did they really refer to Mississippi as the landmass? Because I've seen that before, and I really hope for the Weather Channel's sake that they really didn't refer to it as the landmass. But God, I don't even know. Wouldn't surprise me though. They were playing. Oh man, I tried to just for a little while earlier. I tried to put on Weather Channel to see some coverage of this, and they were playing. I don't even remember the name of it, but of course it wasn't about weather. It was some kind of mud show. They were putting mud in trucks and they were transporting mud places. I'm like, what is this? Like, why is it never weather on there? I mean, I remember they used to do coverage, like even at this stage, they would pretty much be wall to wall and have people all along the coast, and I know it was kind of maybe overblown a little bit, but still they were talking about weather. Right now I go in there and I don't know what they're doing right now. Maybe someone could check for me. But they were transporting mud in trucks earlier, so I don't remember what the name of it was, but it said some kind of mud in the name. It wasn't weather, so that's my point. Let's see what else we have here. Katrina was a Cat 5. No, Katrina was a Cat 5 at one point, not when it made landfall. It made landfall as a 3. 125, I think, if my memory serves me right. Got up to 175, I think. Miss Lito, how you doing? Good to see you on here. Metairie going to take a hit if this current track holds, right? Power outages going to be on the eastern side. Hurricane force winds are going to be possible. Hurricane force gusts are going to be possible, certainly. A lot of rainfall in that area as well. So certainly a lot of impacts coming from this one. No, Katrina was a Cat 5 in the Gulf. I mean, it was classified as a 5 for a little while. Hit that loop current, got into the Gulf, and got up to, I think it was 175. I think y'all can verify that if you want to for me, but I think it was 175 was the highest it got in the Gulf, and it made landfall as 125. I think it made landfall as a 3. They went back after Michael, I think, and classified it as a Cat 5. I think Michael was a 4. And by the way, Michael's another one. Was that 2018? I don't remember. Michael was another one that was not supposed to get that strong, but it hit that area in the Gulf and boom. And you know what I mean? It strengthened. So it can happen. That's what makes me nervous about this is once it hits that area, what do we see? Michael was one that was not supposed to get that high, and man, Michael did some damage in those areas in Florida. That was a bad one. I forgot the stupid tornadoes, Kimberly. there's always something else to worry about, right? It's always something. Yeah, there's those tornadoes that form in the in the bands for these things. So there you go. Let's see. So so glad I asked about Franklin's fault. What is Franklin's false hope? I don't even know what that is. Sounds like a book or a series that involves like a sad bear or something. Let's see. Can somebody search on Amazon and see if Franklin's False Hope is a book that involves a bear? Let's see here. What's gonna be like in Hammond? Hammond's gonna see some impacts. Like Hammond will see some impacts there as it moves north. We're talking tropical storm force. We're talking a lot of rainfall, winds, obviously, power outages possible. This is if this current track holds, right? As long as you're going to be close to the center and east of the center, the impacts are going to be decent, right? If you get west of the center, you're going to have a better opportunity to not be so bad, although impacts will still be felt west of it because this looks like, as you can see, how if it looks like what that is showing, then this is a full-blown hurricane, obviously, and we're going to have storms that are wrapping nicely around the left side as well. So it's better to be on the west because it's not as bad, but still there'll be some impacts on that side as well. So same goes for Denham Springs, Jordan. That's kind of the same thing up there. You're enough away from the coast that you won't get the full brunt of the winds, but still you're going to see some some winds from this even moving in, and some rain and some power outages as well are going to be possible. I'm not saying everyone's going to lose power, but there's going to be some power outages. That's certain. Let's see here. Shirley asked about Kenner wind speeds. I'd like for you to answer that. I'd like to know myself. Again, impossible to predict right now because I don't know if this is where it's going to come in. I mean, if it is that track and it's close enough, I think Kenner gets hurricane force gust at a minimum. Yeah, so we're talking about power outages. We're talking about rainfall. We're talking about winds. If the current track holds, we're on the eastern side of this now, okay? Remember Zeta, Kenner, all these areas here, we're kind of on the western side of it, the western eye. The eastern is always that northeast quadrant is always that worst spot, and that would put Kenner and Metairie and New Orleans in that eastern spot. So intense weather certainly can be expected there. I don't know if we're going to see dramatic shifts, Christina, right now. I think we'll see slight shifts back and forth. By dramatic, do you mean like out of the cone? I don't think out of the cone, but certainly the area is still in the cone. We can see the center go back in that direction. So don't be surprised, if we see that. So we can still see some adjustments to the track. There's no doubt in my mind about that. Blake, impacts for base St. Louis. The surge, you saw the amounts along the coast. 7 to 11 water rise potential along the coast there, depending on the track. A lot of rainfall, a lot of wind. Power outages are going to be likely in some areas over there. Again, it's hard to pinpoint exact areas. I could just kind of give you a kind of an idea of what to maybe expect and fine-tune it as we get a little bit closer. Thank you, Pamela, for that. Appreciate that. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks, Dustin. Appreciate that, man. Thanks, Angel. Look, this one, I am really praying I'm wrong. I'm praying that the forecast is wrong. I'm praying that this does not happen and we don't see this rapid intensification, but I don't see what's going to stop it. So in this case, I'm hoping everything I'm telling you is wrong. I mean, like I'm hoping that this does not happen. So, we just hope for the best here, and we hope we don't see this. But unfortunately, the indications are I just don't know what's going to stop it. From really strengthening and really getting really strong once it gets to the Gulf and moves toward the coast. So we got to just watch this very, very closely. Thanks, Jacob. Appreciate that, man. Ivan was a beast, Pamela. I remember Ivan. I think we evacuated from Ivan over here in New Orleans, if I remember. I think we have an Ivan evacuation. It was supposed to come in this area and it hooked over there in 2004. Man, 2004, 2005, those 2 years were incredibly active. Ivan was a beast. That's the one that knocked over the bridge in the... what's the bay called in Pensacola? I know y'all know. I'm trying to remember it. I can't recall it. Y'all know it. The bridge that knocked over in Pensacola. I forgot the name of it. That bay. Not sure yet, Frank. Not sure if I'm leaving or not. Got to see what happens in the next day or so before I make that decision. Got to see what happens. A lot of rain in Hattiesburg, Doug, as this moves to the north there. Maybe tropical storm force conditions up there, but I think rainfall is going to be the one of the biggest concerns as this thing moves up to the north and the east there. Drop in rainfall in those areas and all that rainfall amounts come down. We got to watch the river levels too. I was mentioning that earlier. Got to watch all that. No problem, Jonna. Thank you, Pamela, for the stars. Appreciate that. Angel says they played Highway to Hell last night. Highway to Hell. That's the Weather Channel, right? They play Highway to Hell and they played something about mud and trucks. I'm not sure what that was. That was not a good show, though. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate that, man. Turtle. Thank you, Carrie. We have a bear in the Gulf. Nope, not yet, Jamie. We have a sad bear on the on that Franklin book we were talking about. Thank you, Blake. Appreciate that. North of Vermilion Bay over there, Cindy. Saturday bands? I don't know if you'll have bands coming on Saturday. I think maybe late Saturday night going into Sunday. I think you'd be okay as far as the storm goes in that area on Saturday. I think any conditions we see are going to be later on Saturday night going into Sunday. We'll probably start to see some of the conditions deteriorating across the coast, along the coast there. As far as the storm goes, if you look at this right here, what the hell was that? If you look at this right here, this is kind of like Saturday afternoon, right? The potential to see some very stretchy bands there to the north, but the majority of the stuff is going to be to the south still on Saturday afternoon. But that's when it's going to be starting to kind of blossom into what we don't want to see there, right? Let's see. Hey from the river, how you doing? Zeta destroyed my house in Long Beach, man. Zeta was a nasty little storm, right? It was kind of sneaky bad. It was pretty bad. It was bad here in Kenner, and we were in, I know folks over there in the Mississippi Gulf Coast had it even worse as that thing crossed in. Yeah, that was a bad one. And Zeta wasn't even like one of the worst from last season, even though it was so bad. They had so many more that were so much worse. Last season was not good. Escambia Bay. Or was it Escambia Bay? Escambia Bay? I don't know. Thank you. Thank you, Carol. Appreciate that. I couldn't remember the name of it. But yeah, I remember the truck. There was a truck, right? I think maybe the driver was hurt or deceased in that, which was sad to see. I was always wondering, because there was that picture of the truck that was tipped when the bridge collapsed during Ivan, and I was always wondering, why was that truck there? Was he really driving, doing it? That was, man, that was sad. I think that was a storm with the truck. That was that image. I don't know. No problem, Tiffany. Happy to do it. Let's see what we have here. Thank you, Pamela. Sean says Mayday Air Disaster is currently playing on the Weather Channel. Okay. So, case in point, it's not mud anymore. It's about Mayday disasters. Houston's looking good, Christy. Houston's looking good over there right now. Yeah, that would be a drastic shift to put Houston in any danger there. That would be a massive shift. So Houston's looking really good. Heather, last question. When is the big model run? Is it later tonight or is it in the morning? Well, we just looked at GFS, and that didn't really change too much. The European model is going to be out on 1 a.m., and then the new model suite, like the grouping of models, this thing, there'll be a new one at 2 a.m. that runs for that. So, yeah. I'll be late night model tracking. And I'll post some things to the page as well. Yeah, so that's when the new stuff comes out. And then the National Hurricane Center will have a new update on the actual storm at 1 a.m. as far as coordinates and wind speed, pressure. That'll be 1 a.m. And then a new cone, the full thing, at 4 a.m., which I will not be up for. I can promise you. That's the one thing I miss always. There was a time, though, when I think it was Isaac back in 2012, where I actually couldn't sleep and I actually stayed up for the 4 a.m. That was that storm. And I think, of course, Katrina back in 2005 was doing the same thing, but I will not be up for that this time. That will be the one that I miss. So yeah. Let's see. Why is the Weather Channel drunk? That's a good question. Let me know if you find the answer. Ivan decimated Pensacola Beach. Yes, it did. No problem, Heather. All right, so people that joined in late, let me just recap here. I know some folks may have joined late, and that's fine. I won't penalize you for that. This is the projected right now from the National Hurricane Center. This is their latest cone. They put it on the Louisiana coast. This is, by the way, this moved back a little bit in case y'all joined late. Earlier it was like 1 p.m. Sunday. Now it looks like about 7 p.m. Sunday. That's not to say at the next cone it won't be back to 1 p.m. So just think right now it looks like Sunday, right? Maybe early on Sunday. Maybe plan that it is 1 p.m. Sunday. So it might give yourself a few more hours. But this is where the center would be coming on. So let me stress that. This is where the center would be coming on, okay? So if you're looking at this, you'd have the center here, but remember these bands are going to be expanding well before the center comes in. So the conditions deteriorate very early on Sunday, but the center moves on possibly in the evening, okay? And it's forecast right now to be a category 2 and a strong one at that, okay? So I'm talking 1 mile per hour. They're forecasting 110. Cat 3 is 111. I'm still saying we're going to get to Cat 3. Okay, that's my prediction. I think we're going to get at least to a Category 3 here. I'm hoping it's the lower end Category 3, but the way that it's going to be moving into the Gulf and where it's moving into the Gulf, it's potential that we could be on the higher end of the Category 3. Remember, storms like Laura, Michael, these were not supposed to get where they did. If you go back to the original forecast for them, they probably were not even close to where they ended up. So scary, and I don't want to say scary, but things happen in the Gulf that sometimes shouldn't, right, when it gets in the right conditions. So is it scary? Maybe a little bit, right? We don't want to see that. We don't want to see that happen, but certainly the conditions are there, and it's going to be ripe for it to happen. So we hope it's a Cat 2. I think at a minimum it's going to be a Cat 2, and my hope is that it stays there and that things don't materialize how they could. This is zoomed in. Who asked for a zoomed in? Somebody asked for a zoomed in. Sean asked for a zoom in. This is the zoomed in portion of the satellite. It's not. It's you can see something in there right here. It's hard to pick out anything. The National Hurricane Center had it between like where did they have it at 10 p.m. Let's see. I think they had it between maybe like north, just southeast of the Cayman Islands here. And so if you can see that, this is the Cayman Islands. They actually have the center around here, okay? So think about that, where the center is right now. And I talked about this earlier. It's still dealing with some of that, it's still dealing with that wind shear that's knocking some storms to the north, to the northeast right now. So a lot of the storms currently are displaced to the east. It's still dealing with some moderate shear right now from that upper low. That is going to relax as it gets closer to Cuba and into the Gulf. Wind shear is not going to be an issue anymore. Hope it is, but it doesn't look like it's going to be an issue anymore. So at that point, we'll see the storm start to consolidate around the center of circulation. Now, what sometimes happens with this, sometimes, because these storms are getting pushed in this direction, sometimes that can nudge a center a little bit more north and east than it's supposed to be. Sometimes, not always. Maybe it's not going to have any impact on that, but sometimes momentum takes it in that direction. But we'll see what happens. That we had a wobble earlier a little bit more to the west, and that's what kind of shift things a little bit more. We'll see if, I'm telling you, from right now until we get to Cuba and over Cuba, it's the biggest time period because this is where things can still happen. The center is not very well developed right now. It's getting knocked, the shear's knocking it off a little bit currently. So if we're going to see variations happen, it's going to be from right now until we get to the, until we get to Cuba and past Cuba. We can still see some shifts happen, so don't be surprised if we do, right? People to the west, folks to the west, watch this still. To the east, gotta watch it still. Right now, looks like a pretty decent hurricane making landfall in Louisiana sometime on Sunday. So that's the latest on Tropical Storm Ida. It is 40 miles per hour currently, and it's moving to the northwest at, I think, 12 or 14 miles per hour. So that's the latest. Again, if you need to watch the replay of this, it'll be on the page if you missed some of the beginning part. But I'll watch this as we go into tonight. I'll post some of the models. Maybe I'll post the GFS model later. Well, not the GFS. We saw the GFS just now. It didn't really change. But we'll look at the model. I'll look at the Euro later. The new hurricane update. I'll post that to the page when we get it at 1 a.m. and maybe the model suite at 2 a.m. Thank you, Chad. No problem, bud. Good to see you on here. I'll post that as well moving forward on the page. So stay at the page. Tag your friends. Share the page if you appreciate the info. Appreciate y'all. Thank you for following the page. Thank you, Paul Davis, Restoration of Baton Rouge. new partner. Thank y'all. Visit their website, visit their Facebook page, give them a like over there in the Baton Rouge area. Certainly consider them for any services that you need in that area. They service all the way from like Lake Charles over to Mobile. So even Lake Charles, Mobile, a lot of folks. Give Paul Davis a call if you need help. Tell him Gulf Coast Updates sent you. All right, thanks y'all for watching. Appreciate y'all following the page, and thank y'all again. Everybody have a good rest of your night. Joe DiGregorio says Cantori's heading for New Orleans. And with that, I will sign out.